Okay, so Amanda, why don't you just start out by introducing yourself?
So I'm Officer Amanda Frederick. I work at 43 Division with the Toronto Police Service. I've been an officer for just over 20 years. I've held different roles as an officer. Um, my division is located in the most eastern part of Toronto, which is Scarborough. And I started my career actually in 42 Division, which is just a
Mm.
little bit north of 43. And
Yeah,
when
42 division is the biggest division in the city, isn't it?
now you're putting me on the spot.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Maybe I'm just thinking of the map. I think a 4 district like Scarborough is huge, but you got 41, 42, 43. I'm just thinking as a rookie, that would be a really interesting place to start. Like you're covering a lot of ground very quickly.
It's a very wide division, so
Mhm.
it's actually difficult to get around if you're, let's say at Morningside in the 401, and you
Mhm.
have a call at Vic Park and Finch. It takes a bit of time to get there.
Mhm.
43 Division is a little more, but it's
Mhm.
still quite far to go from one end of the division to the other. It takes a good 10 minutes, 10-15
Mhm.
minutes.
Mhm. I want to ask you more about your career, but first, I want to point out to anybody who's watching this, you and I have had a couple conversations already before this one, and people should know that this is not the sort of thing that you usually do, right? You talk to the community all the time on a daily basis. You've presented in front of hundreds of high school students, thousands of high school students, like
Elementary.
elementary school students. You are probably like one of the most personable people on the police service, but I don't think you've ever done like a media interview or anything like that, right? So you were
Right.
telling me you felt a little bit out of your element, but I'm just telling you we're having a conversation, and I wanted to point that out so that because you deserve respect for that. You're really stepping out of your comfort zone, and I'm so thankful that you've agreed to talk to me. So thank you, Amanda.
You're
Constable.
welcome.
Constable Frederick. So tell me just about your career then. You mentioned you started in 42 Division, you're now in 43 Division. What sorts of different roles did you hold throughout those years, those 2 decades?
So when I was at 42 division, I was there for from 2002 till 2006, and very junior officer. So I was in the primary response unit for those years. And when 43 division opened, I entered into each young officer enters into a training spot, and that's where I went into the CIB, which is the criminal investigation. And I also was a community response unit officer for the 6 months of the year training that we receive. So after that, I moved along back into the primary response unit where I was in there for a few years, and then I applied for the community school liaison officer position, which is predominantly uh, kids under 14.
Mhm.
And so I was in that role for a couple of years, and then back to the primary response unit, then into the fraud unit. And then I was very fortunate. I had another opportunity as a community school liaison officer. And both those experiences were different because I learned what worked the first time and what would work better the second time.
Hmm.
So it was great. And then I was back into the primary response unit. And then for the last year, I've held a position in the community response unit, and just transitioned over to my own neighborhood.
Wow. So you're part of the neighborhood officer program with Toronto Police.
Right.
Are
So
you one of the officers that walks around and actually on the front of your vest it says neighborhood officer, something like that?
that's correct.
Okay. Because
That's
people, I
correct.
think more and more people in Toronto are going to be seeing officers like that. So this can give them this is a great opportunity for them to get a feel for what you're there for. So I have to point out first, you were going through that very long list of things that you've done and so many incredible opportunities in there. When you mentioned working with the kids, like the elementary school kids, your face just lit up. Does that like hold, would you say like a special place in your heart? Because we've talked offline about other things you've done that is really special, but your face really lit up when you said that.
I think it was some of the, I guess, most enjoyable times as a primary response officer. Sometimes you can feel overwhelmed dealing with priority calls on a constant basis.
Mm.
So this role was a shift from that, and it was you got to be involved a little more within the school community, within with the kids in their daily lives. Um, so that for me, it was a nice shift. And it was a time that I quite enjoyed. I got to meet many incredible principals, staff, and students at over 60 schools at the time that were within 43 division. So I met a lot of people. Yeah, and it's also really rewarding. Just watching kids overcome talking in public.
You're watching them grow. Yeah, like as a primary response
Watching
officer,
them grow.
You're as a primary response officer, you're seeing a lot of people, like many times, like the worst days of their lives, or just like bad thing after bad thing, and then you're sort of walking away from it. Whereas in this role, you get to create relationships and yeah, see change and take some pride in that. So what was it that you learned from the first time around that didn't work or didn't work as well that you then tweaked for the second time around when you went back to the schools?
I needed to be more involved. I was very involved, but I needed to also complement the way the kids were in school. I needed to complement it by having, I ended up having a Lego club at one school. And the kids would come in at lunch. Sometimes I'd have juice boxes or granola bars, or if the Lego wasn't available, we would have some worksheets or color sheets, and we would just sit and talk. And most of the schools that I ran this in were asking for more of a presence, because it was such a positive thing for the children to see officers within their school four walls. And so I was able to connect that way. And sometimes there was, I had to go to a school over, my lunch hour or their lunch hour, and I had to sit and discuss some uncomfortable situations with them. And it just, it was just a good way for kids to have positive interactions with police, because sometimes this might have been their first interaction with a police officer. And for other kids, they only know what they've heard or what they've seen on TV. So it was just I ran it differently with the clubs, brought in pizza, stayed a little longer, missed out on my own, scheduled lunch, but I was fine with that. And assisted teachers with anything that they were coming across within their classrooms. And we would brainstorm whatever the issue might have been, and we were able to successfully help the students.
You just mentioned being involved, the importance of being involved. And I would say, from everything I've heard about you, in particular from one of your superiors who had recommended that I speak with you, you are heavily involved in the community, in the Woburn community in particular, where you're now a neighborhood officer. But I'm wondering where that comes from. Like what made you want to become a police officer all those years ago?
So it's the same answer that everyone gives, and it's the answer that fits best, and it's basically to help people. I enjoy interacting with people of all ages, all abilities. I like problem solving, and it just seemed like the right at the time and right career to pursue. So that's why I chose it, went into it. And if you ask any other police officer, they're going to say the same thing. It's because you want to help somebody.
So you've been helping a lot of people in Northeast Scarborough in your current role. I know that because of, again, talking to your superior. Tell me, like, Constable Frederick, how do you think your colleagues at 43 Division would describe you? If somebody said, "Oh, who is this Constable Frederick? She's asking for donations for somebody," like, who is she? What's she all about? What would they say?
Persistent. I know. I actually had a community member say to me that they like to give officers nicknames, and that's their way of remembering. And she told me that she's going to remember me as Spicy. So
Okay.
I know you might have heard that. So and it was in the most positive way. But she also related to
Mhm.
persistent. So no is really not in my vocabulary when it comes to having to be resourceful for the community. So I think that's why I would say persistent.
Mhm. Okay, so let's go through some of those things that you have had to use that persistency. It seems like a skill that you've really like the whole not saying no, you've really gotten it down. And I think I could learn a thing or two from this. So recently, or I think maybe it was last year, you got a call from a teacher, I believe, is somewhere, not even necessarily in your division, but a teacher saying that she had heard from another teacher that's sort of in your jurisdiction that this family had arrived from Chad in Africa needing help with something. What was it that they needed, and where did the conversation go from there?
So the family had been in Canada for about 2 years. That teacher was teaching at the school just when the family arrived to the school.
Mm.
And then she was transferring over to another school. And she obviously still had teacher contacts within the school. So they reached out to her and said, we need backpacks. This family could really benefit from that. So it happened to be the end of August, the end of August of last year, when the Children's Breakfast Club of Canada and the Jamal McGlure Foundation was in our division with a bunch of backpacks. So I messaged them, and they were very kind, and they provided me with I think it was 10 to 15. I don't want to get caught up on the number, 10 to 15. And 7 of them went within to Miss Shaw, and she provided them to the family that was requesting it. The remainder of the backpack she was able to disseminate within her community,
Mm.
uh, which was a different school.
Mhm. So, but you something there, you had an inkling or something, or was maybe it was when you went and met with the family to give them the backpacks that you realized that they could probably use some more help. So tell me about that.
So when one thing that we have to be mindful of is a lot of families have pride and they don't want to ask for help. So I did happen to meet with the father of the family, and I spoke to him outside of his residence, outside of the building, and we had a brief conversation. And I mentioned to him that, here's the backpacks, but if there's anything else we can help you with, you just need to call me or message me, and I'll see what I can help you with. And he wasn't really responding to me, so I said, "How about you sleep on it, and I'll get a hold of you tomorrow and see what I can help you with." So the next day I got in touch with him, and then it kind of the list got a little bit bigger, and I was able to help him out with some clothing, some food, um, and he was able to use that for his family.
Hmm. How were
He
you able to help him with this? Like, how did you get this stuff?
So the best way that I thought was, it was the beginning of the school year. We at the station all have families, and we do spring cleaning or fall cleaning of our children's closets. So I sent out a list asking for items. And initially I wasn't very specific on it. I just said I need clothing and these are the sizes. But I got some response back, and they wanted a little more clarification as to why. So I explained that the family had been here from
Mm.
Chad. They'd been here for 2 years. They were struggling at the time with food securities, clothing, as they had such a large family.
Mhm.
And this was the best way that I knew how to get it for them, was through 43 Division, and nobody disappointed. That's for sure. I was able to get everything I needed for them, and luckily, because they have a larger family, they're able to hand down the clothing that we gave them.
Mhm.
So everybody will benefit from it. As far as food, at the time, there's a food bank within just outside of our division that had called the station and said that they had bags of food. If we wanted, we could come and get them, and then we could bring them to whatever families we felt could benefit from it. And that's where I got several bags of food for him.
Do you if somebody were to ask you, I know you're a neighborhood officer now, but in general, like what would you say is the role of a police officer? Because of everything you're describing, I think would not be in line with what a lot of people would see as the role of a police officer. What do you see as the role of a police officer?
So our first role is to serve and protect. And unfortunately, sometimes in a situation, we have to arrest people. And that's our job because we're keeping people safe. Various phone calls that I've received from people within the community may not look like it's a police matter, whether it's clothing, food, shelter, behavior, general inquiries, animal surrenders. It may not look like a police problem on the surface, but ask, why are you giving up your animal? Well, we're being moved from this shelter, or we're being removed from our apartment and we have to go to a shelter now. Or my husband's lost his job, or my son, unfortunately, was arrested and now we can't stay in this neighborhood because of possible conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes if you dig a little deeper, it's on its face, it's not police related, but sometimes it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
meeting people where they are, whatever their needs are, and I guess not assuming what they need so that they can tell you what they need. And I guess that must make it easier for them, like when something bad happens, to feel comfortable calling a police officer. For some of them, maybe they come from countries where police corruption is rampant, or they've heard a story in the past of somebody that didn't have a good interaction. But I imagine that all these things that you do, they must go a long way in building that trust in policing in general. Like, do you hear that kind of stuff from the community?
I do. And I know that I got a phone call this morning. One family I've known for quite a while. She's just having some difficulty with one of her kids and was asking me, looking for some supports essentially. And so I was able to help her out with that. And we may not talk for a couple weeks or maybe even a year, but if she comes across anything that she thinks that maybe I can assist her with, I'm positive she'll call me back.
So you get a lot of phone calls, and I want to get to those, but just tell me, like, what is the day in the life like for you? What are your daily duties? Where are you going throughout your hours in the day?
So I know we mentioned, you said I was a Woburn neighborhood officer, sorry, but I'm actually an Eglinton East neighborhood officer as of May 23rd. I was a temporary Woburn neighborhood officer as of June 2021, up until this year, May 23rd, when I made the transition over. So basically it's arrangements within the community to meet the community, to talk about certain issues that they're concerned about. If there's any difficulties that families are suffering from, I try to get them the best help that they can get. And we're very fortunate. 43 Division, I know that we have a lot of great partnerships, and there's a lot of great businesses that like to get involved when they know that they're, see people struggling or there's a problem. So it's all bringing them all together to the table to discuss what we can do to help. So right now for Eglinton East, as we just start in this role in that neighborhood, that's what the beginning of this neighborhood is going to look like, getting to know everybody and everyone getting to know us.
How difficult is it to break down those barriers, perhaps with people who might not be trusting of the police or have never met an officer before? Even if, like you mentioned, children, lots of children, the first time they see an officer might have been with you, but how difficult is it to sometimes like penetrate that and show them like, no, 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 like we're here to help you. I'm here if you want to call me. Is it a long journey? Is it an easy thing to do? How would you describe that?
It depends on the person, if they're going to receive us well. And, you know, no is really not an option for me. So I will be there. I will still show up, even if you're, you know, the individual may not be a fan of a police officer. And I'll just continue to be present. And usually for me, that has worked in the past. Just being present, being, you know, neutral, and being human.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. So let's talk about some of those things, those human activities that you've done, but actually I think I would call them superhuman activities, because some of the things that you've managed to organize within 43 Division have been pretty remarkable. First, tell me about the holiday party that you guys had. I believe it was last year, right? And it was, you were hoping it would be indoors, but COVID, of course, was still going on. So what happened and what did you do for that? I know you managed to cajole some of your colleagues into taking on some roles too.
Right. And so we wanted to hold a food, hat and mitt and sock drive. And there's a reason why it's a hat, mitt and sock drive. There was a method to it for me. And I had met some nice community members one day, and I said to them, how would you feel about, you know, having a food drive or hosting a food drive? And we could maybe have like our ATVs come out. We have 2 ATVs at 43 Division. I said I could probably get an elf. And then one of the business owners was, you know, said to me, I'm positive I can get a Santa. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, no pun intended. And all the businesses within the plaza got involved. There's a music business in the plaza. They provided speakers. The dental office provided some toothbrushes and toothpaste, and that's significant. And
Yeah,
I'll get to that
we'll talk
later.
about that one after. Yeah.
And everybody who there was a pizza place, they discounted their pizza. They also donated back into the food drive. We had free cookies, hot chocolate. All the businesses wanted in on this event, and it was just great to see. We even had a developer reach out to us, and they wanted to provide us with a donation. And you know, I wasn't happy handling cash, so I thought the best way to receive that donation was to enlist the help of the other neighborhood officers in the office. And at the time there were 3 established neighborhoods in 43. So I asked them if they could go within their neighborhoods and find a food bank of their choice. And we'd have a $500 check put into that charity's name, food bank's name. And then they would be able to go back and give it to the food banks. So they were very happy to do it. They found their food banks. They brought the checks. The food banks were overwhelmed, and so everybody benefited there, right? Every neighborhood, every pocket of 43 Division, whether they've received a van full of food from the food drive, everybody benefited from it. And we ended up getting some monetary donations, and we took the money and we also bought food gift cards from the local grocery stores. And then we also disseminated those cards within the neighborhoods to you know, whoever the officers recognized as somebody who could benefit from the food card. So it was good.
You said,
oh, and
yeah, go ahead.
We had an elf.
Oh, and you had
And
an
the
elf.
elf.
Okay, so where did this
We
elf
had an
come
elf.
from?
So I accidentally found out that one of my coworkers had a costume. So I voluntold him that he should probably make me a little video of himself with his elf costume, and we could use it as publicity to, you know, get more interest in the
Mhm.
event.
Mhm.
So we did. And unfortunately for him, it did go on TikTok,
Why,
but it
unfortunately?
was, well, I don't know if he was happy with it, but he did it for me. So I'll
Yeah,
take it.
that's good. Well, I think that probably given the many things that you have planned around 43 Division, your colleagues know that if you're asking them or volunteering them to do something, it's really always going to end up in the same place where they're just giving in and helping out in whatever way they can, right?
I think so.
Good for you. Okay, so but you said that there was a significance to did you say socks, mitts, and toques? Is that what you were, and along with the food? So why
Yes.
the socks, mitts, and toques?
So 5 years ago, I noticed at my house, even only with 4 people in the home, that we had this obnoxious amount of toothbrushes and toothpastes and dental floss.
Mm.
Um, the dental industry has taken off, and all of us now have, battery operated toothbrushes. And you can imagine if your household has 5 people, how many toothbrushes you'll have.
Yes.
So I thought, what can I do with this? Where can I give it? And so I brought them all down to the table and thought, why not try and give them to make some sort of care package for people within the community who maybe didn't have family members. And when I had the toothbrushes, it was around Christmas time. So I
Mm.
thought, what better way to make some sort of gift bag and figure out where they can go. So
Mhm.
I decided I actually wanted more than the 20, 30 toothbrushes I had or items I had. So I said 80, and I spoke to a friend of mine, and she said to me she would make me 80 washcloths and put a Dove soap in them. And
Make like
it
you
just
knit or crochet them? Like how is she
crocheted
making?
them. She
Wow.
crocheted
Okay.
them.
So maybe I'm a slow crocheter. I love crocheting, and I don't do it nearly as often as I used to, but my mom, one of the favorite things she would ask me to do for her are the washcloths, like crocheted washcloths. You just can't beat them. But I think like one square washcloth, it would usually take me like a half an hour to do. So your friend made 80 of them? Wow.
80 of them. And
Wow.
then through our conversation, when she was asking what I needed them for, I told her what I wanted them for, and then I said, maybe I should look at a seniors home or somewhere where people maybe don't have family members or won't be receiving Christmas gifts. And ironically, a good friend of hers actually, was working in a nursing home, and
Mm.
in fact, there were a lot of seniors there that weren't necessarily having, let alone getting a Christmas gift.
Mm.
So I just decided on my own that I would get small items to put in the bag, a pair of stretchy mitts, nail file, soft candy, and I think a toque that year.
Mm.
And part of the reason why I wanted to do it was it kind of piqued the interest of, my son at the time, who was young, and he was looking at the table. What's that for? And so I told him, this is my idea. So he had a hand in helping me pack the bags, and it was important for me to show him that everything we have doesn't necessarily mean everyone else has. So it's important that we either share it or we donate it. And so that's what my motivating factor was.
That
I
is
was
such
lucky I was able to continue with it. Go ahead.
no, please continue. Sorry, you froze there
Oh,
for a second, so I didn't know if you were done talking. Continue.
so I decided that it was well received at the nursing home. So I just decided the next year I should do it too. Except when I went to my dentist, I basically explained to him that he needed me the 80 toothbrushes because this is what I was doing, and it was the right thing to do. And again, as a household, we all got the bags together that year. We did the same thing. We donated them within living at the time, and then the next year I was on a platoon, and My son didn't have as much interest in helping me with the bags. My mom did. And then some of the officers on my platoon at the time, I encouraged them that they should probably donate to this idea, and that we should bring the care packages to the Tony Stacy Center in Scarborough, where we actually work. So it would, it would be a good connection for us for everybody to see. It's not police officers do care, and they want to help. And so we were able to make enough care packages for the seniors at that center that year. And then this past year, with the food drive, we held the mitts and the hats and the socks. We had a surplus of them, but I just brought all the extras anyway. And then every resident within the Tony Stacy Center benefited from a care package that we put together. And they're all grateful for it.
I think that you probably have a lot of people watching this thinking about, first of all, how many toothbrushes and little tubes of toothpaste they have. I know I certainly am. Like, we have a basket underneath our kitchen or our sink in my husband and my bathroom, and then our kids, they've got a basket. And you're right, like, we've got electric toothbrushes, so we kind of hold on to them thinking for traveling or whatever. But there are so many people who like those little things that would just be so helpful. So for you to think of that, like, I want to donate mine now. And I hope you're inspiring other people too. Also, I'm sure you probably have along the way. Speaking of that, you organized, because you're pretty hip. You're a lot hipper than I am when it comes to things like TikTok, and you're on top of the social media challenges and everything. And you saw something called, was it called the domino effect on one of your social media platforms? Was it Instagram, or where did you see that? And what is it? And what did you do?
So it was on TikTok, and I'm actually not very hip. After I held the basketball event, a bunch of the kids said to me and asked me, "Are you on TikTok?" And I was like, "Well, maybe I should be." So I did post this event, and basically what it is what you do is you find a school within the community that is resourceful enough to collect cereal boxes, and what happens is they make basically a domino effect through the hallway of the school. And I asked one of our principals, Mr. P at Centennial Road Public School, I asked him if he would help me run this. Absolutely, no problem. He put together a poster, sent it home with the students. The kids were super excited. Families were happy to donate. And they ended up collecting, I want to say 670 boxes of cereal for this. And it ran the length of the school. And in the gym, the top 3 classes who collected the most cereal boxes got a front row seat. And at the end of the domino, it spelled hunger, Hunger. And they were able to knock out hunger 670 cereal boxes at a time. So the cereal boxes were then redistributed back into the community to families and to other schools that would benefit from the cereal.
Wow. I love hearing that it's people giving within their own community too. I think that's really nice. And you said that you mentioned that it was at a basketball tournament, that after a basketball tournament that some kids asked you if you were in TikTok. So I want to ask you about that basketball tournament. Is this the one that happened was it last fall that it happened? When was that basketball tournament?
End of April.
Okay.
End of April.
Okay. So how did this come about? Because there was a lot involved. And I think that in one of our previous conversations, you described this as like the type of event, like the type of planning that would be needed was more than you thought that you were capable of, but somehow you pulled it off. So tell me what happened with this basketball tournament.
So I thought I gave myself enough time with basically it was, I think, 6 weeks. And after speaking with the organizers and at the end of the coaches that were involved, they kind of looked at me and they said, "How long did this take you?" I was like, 6 weeks. And they kind of looked at me like, wow, okay. So that made me feel really good, because I was like, why? How long should it take me? They're like, well, a couple months, like it's a big deal. But having said that, they meant big deal because the amount of kids that were there.
Mm.
So originally when I wanted to have this event, I was looking at 40 to 50 kids. And in my mind, that was even overwhelming because I wanted to make sure that it was the best day that could possibly happen. And unfortunately, on a budget of zero. So I thought, who am I going to reach out to and how am I going to do this? So I was very fortunate that one of the coaches mentioned to me that he had used the gym at Centennial College.
Hmm.
And so I reached out to the athletics and recreational manager, Darcy, and he graciously allowed gym. I asked him how big the gym was, and he said, oh, it can hold up to, a couple hundred kids or kids. And so I thought about it for a second, and I know I'd already given him the number of 50, but I thought, wait a second, if I'm already doing 50, I'm going to do 80, and then that's where I'm going to stop. And then next year I'll do 100, but he doesn't know that yet. So
that's now.
He does now. So I enlisted the help of the principals within the Woburn area, because at the time I was the temporary neighborhood officer there. I met with all the principals, provided them registrations forms, and each school was allotted various amount of spots depending on the size of the school and the ages of the kids. We only had 2 high schools, so they got more kids, more registration forms, and other schools got 5 kids, and depending on the basketball interests within the Woburn community. So principals recruited the kids for me. They all signed up. Then I reached out to a mall within Woburn, Cedar Brae Mall. I met with the manager of the mall, management of the mall, Lisa. She was fantastic. She provided us with water bottles and little backpacks, and including little basketball stress balls for the kids. Then I realized that Centennial College probably won't allow us to use the basketballs there, or they might not even have 80 basketballs. So in order to have a basketball event, where am I going to go?
Small detail.
Small detail. Basketball event can't happen because we don't have the basketballs, kids. Sorry. So I went to the Canadian Tire in the Cedar Brae Mall, and I sat down with them and explained to them what we were doing. And Kim Search, the general manager there, who has organized a ton of events, really thought it was a great idea. And I think they only had 3 weeks to get me the basketballs at this point, but they did.
And how many basketballs? You had 80 kids.
80.
So how many? 80 basketballs. So 1 basketball per kid. Wow.
Yes. And so the kids didn't realize it at the time. They got to keep the basketballs as well. Then I was able to reach out to BioSteel, who provided hydration and towels. And all these items are basically swag items, right? Kids like this, kids like swag. So they were provided also some other water bottles as well. Then I was able to reach out to Basketball Canada and Ontario Basketball. They provided a bunch of prizes, things, t-shirts and items, other small basketball items that we used as prizes. And then we were able to enlist No Frills to provide us, again in the Cedar Brae Mall, with some snacks for the kids. And then we asked Scarborough Center for Healthy Communities if they could provide us with some literature on mental health for you. And through social media, I had somebody reach out to me saying that they wanted to cover the lunch, which small detail again, right? So,
right. For 80 kids. 80 growing kids. Wow.
So the Good Guides official and Swabir, he's a member of the Chiefs Youth Advisory Committee, and in partnership with the Scarborough Center for Healthy Communities, they were able to provide all the kids with Subway lunch.
Wow.
And I forgot how hungry kids at that age are. So we had half subs. So we're going to have to go for whole subs next year.
Come over and watch my 7-year-old at dinner time, and you will see, you will be reminded because your son is what? He's a teenager now, right?
Yeah.
You will be reminded. He will go through a plate of pasta and then he will say, now can I have dessert? Okay, yeah, you're done. Go ahead, go pick a little treat. And then, oh, can I have a cheese string? Oh, can I also have an apple? And how about a pear? And it is remarkable. Yes, bring on the 12-inch subs next year.
Yes, definitely. And then when I met with the principals originally, all the principals were very happy that this happening for the kids, because we're just exiting out of a pandemic, and they've picked up on a lot of you know not health issues, but they picked up on a lot of like mental health pieces that the kids had been like potentially suffering with during the pandemic, and or just you know as they started the school year, coming from being online. And they all mentioned something about mental health when I met with them. So I thought it would be beneficial if we had some sort of literature or something into the kids' bags, that when they were taking all their items out of the bag, at the end of the day they saw the sheet, but at least they had the sheet. And there was various numbers on there on how to get help if need be, various agencies that could help with counseling. So that was an important piece. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting piece in the bag, but it was the piece that was the most important to me in the bag.
Yeah, but just for them to see that and just know that it's there. They might be tearing through. It's like on Halloween, they come home, they pick out all their favorite things, but eventually you're going to get past those things and you're still going to need a little something. And just to know that there's something there, I think it's just fantastic. And it's the recognition and the validation that, you might not be doing okay, and that's okay. And there's people here to help you. So how did the mental health literature aside, how did the 80 kids react to this tournament? Like, what was it like? I can only imagine the electricity in the gym that day.
Oh, it was contagious. It was the best noise you could hear. Basketballs bouncing, laughter, music, smiles, cheering. The coaches were super engaging. It was amazing. They had a great day, and the best part was getting emails after from the principals. I said, "Is there anything that the kids think we can do better?" And I didn't get anything negative. Not that I expected anything too negative. Maybe they would have preferred a different lunch choice. I don't know. That's what I was expecting. Maybe something else next time. That's about it. But all the principals said the kids had a blast. That as a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the parts of your role is you have, I don't know if this is an compulsory thing, being a neighborhood officer, or if it's something you chose to do, but you have a cell phone that you give the number out to community members. I can only imagine how many, like hundreds or thousands of people from your years of policing have your phone number. What sorts of phone calls do you get throughout your day?
People looking for help with whether it's a family member, looking for direction on housing, food, clothing, animal surrender. I know I mentioned that earlier. I've had a few people reach out because they can't take their animals with them. So try to help them get in touch with either, the animal services or an animal rescue, whatever that person feels comfortable with. Sometimes the animal rescue that I've put them onto will house the dog for them until they can, maybe find a new home. So that's those are the types of calls that we get all the time. And then from previous teachers or staff members who have a question about getting extra businesses and partners involved in some of the initiatives that they have. So those are most of the calls that I receive.
Anybody who's on like Twitter and follows any Toronto police officers, has probably noticed that like everybody's handles includes the fact that this account is not monitored 24/7. Like if there's an emergency, call 911. And I've always like looked at those and thought like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Like who would ever do that? But you actually got a call from one of the community members that you'd built a relationship with when there was like a dangerous situation happening. Tell me about that, because I think it really speaks volumes to the power of the relationships that you're building.
So it was, unfortunately, there happened to be a shooting within a neighborhood, and a mom called me because her kids weren't in, all of them weren't in the house. So she was concerned. And I was alarmed that she called me because she would call 911 for sure. I mean, that's what most of us would do. And I was able to use my other phone, make sure that police were on the way, and we were. And after I had a conversation with her about it, and she just said, "Well, who else was I going to call?" And I said, "Well, you need to call 911. And I'm not even near the where you are, let alone at the station. I just happened to walk by my phone, and I saw on it, and I thought, oh, that's strange. I usually don't get calls from this person. They usually, if I do, it's usually more in the morning hours. So yeah, so I encouraged her to call 911 next time, because that's the safest route to go. And we're still in contact though.
So she had actually heard the gunfire, and that's when she called you, or had she heard?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
No, it was right in the area.
Wow. I mean, it really speaks to the fact that like the impact that you can have on somebody's life, like for that person, you are the police, like you represent the police, you are the person to turn to for help. So when I think about like all these neighborhood officers all over the city, and this is why I love this program, and I've talked publicly about it many times, like it is the power of those relationships. That was one woman, you know, and yeah, she should have been calling 911, but the fact that she had so much faith and trust in you that she's worried about her kids, she's calling you, I think is very admirable, even though she should have been calling 911, but you told her that after. And then you also told me when we were speaking previously, and we don't need to get into the specific details of this, but you had received an email after another shooting happened from an organization in the community that I guess the shooting happened nearby. Does that happen often? Like where people are just touching base with you after a traumatic event happens, and like, are they reaching out to you because you're kind of their go-to person? And if so, like, what do you think they're looking for in that moment from you?
So I think we receive emails. Let me rephrase that. We're in contact with residents within our neighborhoods constantly. We're available, whether it's by email or by phone. And I find most residents don't take advantage of it, or think that or my partners or their personal police officer, they come to us with serious concerns. So when an event like this happens, it makes sense for a neighborhood officer to be a point of contact for people, if they have questions about a traumatic event that's happened in their community. You want to be able to see a familiar face so you can relate. Sorry.
Okay.
And so that's common amongst most of our neighbors, because I've heard people talk in our office about getting contacted after traumatic events that have happened within their neighborhoods. So we're just a pillar, and we have different partners that we can put people in contact with if they're struggling, or if they're struggling with the fact that there's something going on in their community, or if they're struggling with the fact that one of their family members is having a difficult time processing whatever happened. So we're able to assist with that, and we're part of the community, so people count on us for that. So it's not uncommon to hear that.
I imagine like when you are a primary response officer, for example, you are responding to call after call people, you're responding to those 911 calls. In the role that you're in now, though, I imagine that it must be, I don't know if it's rewarding or more difficult, but I'm inclined to say it must be more difficult to see the bad stuff happening in these communities because you have the like the very meaningful relationships in place there. And then, hearing from these people in the aftermath, like it must be difficult to see that.
Well, police officers don't like to see people suffer. In general, as humans, we don't like to see people suffer. So if we can help with whatever ever has unfolded in that community, then we will. Is it difficult to watch people go through grief and sadness? Absolutely. And any officer would tell you that. Especially with homicides and events that have to deal with children, elderly, anything. Because sorry, I keep joking.
It's okay.
We are human, and we all have emotions too, and we can all relate to situations to some degree, because some of us have kids, some of us have elderly parents. So depending on what the situation is, it's hard. It's hard to watch your community suffer through unnecessary situations.
Mm-hmm. But then to be able to have these positive events like the Santa Claus and the elf and the serial domino effect and the now it's me choking and the
change it.
Yeah, exactly. The basketball tournament, like that must just make it all the more rewarding. You just mentioned, like some of us have kids, some of us have elderly parents. Tell me, because you told me offline the other day, how a teacher used to introduce you when you'd go talk to students.
So unfortunately, sometimes when we go into classrooms, we don't get the best reception, like, hello, officer. We get, I didn't do it, my friend did it. And I think the kids are joking for the most part. They're just being silly. They're being kids and they're uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. And this could be their first time with the police officer. So this teacher in particular, Miss Shaw, she just goes out of her way to explain, like, Officer Amanda once was a young girl. Officer Amanda has grown up and now she got married and she has a son and she lives outside of the city, and she is also just like, your family, and she's works, but this is her job, and your mom works, and that, her job is whatever the job may be. Your dad works and this is their job. So she's very good at humanizing police officers quickly. So I always admired that about her, because she could just and then the kids realized that we weren't just the uniform, right?
I muted myself because I was coughing. I'm going to pause for 1 second. 1 second. Okay, so we're back. I just had a little bit of a coughing attack. Constable Frederick, I told you that this would be like an unedited conversation, but that I went into a coughing fit. So I appreciate your patience there. But do you like that introduction you were talking about that this teacher would give? Would students then relax? It's like, and not even necessarily that introduction, but everything you do in the community that is showing the non-policing. Well, it's not even fair to say that, because it is your policing role. It is your human role, but by showing them that and being able to do these things that don't necessarily fall into line with what the stereotypical police role is, and apprehending suspects, putting people behind bars. Do you feel like, can you see like the tension sort of releasing in certain communities, certain neighborhoods when they come around to the fact, like, okay, yeah, like I'm good with this. I'm good with this. I'm going to call this person. I'm going to have this partnership.
I think with kids in that instance, if they don't know the person coming into the room, there's always a little bit of silliness with it. And I've seen it because I've seen other presenters before me when I've been in those classrooms. So I think kids get anxious in general, and I don't necessarily think it's just because we're police officers. I think it's these, whoever we are, these are sometimes the first introductions that they've had to us, or the firefighter, or the dentist, or the doctor. So I think it's in all professions that you know, when you're talking about the kids in communities, everything takes time. Everything just takes time. And once people understand that you're open-minded and you're mindful of the uniqueness of their community, relationships start building. And that's just been my experience.
One more cough there. Constable Frederick, is there anything else you want people to know about? Sorry, I'm going to cut this part too. I need to get more water. I'm going to get a bigger glass. Hold on. Okay, we're back again. I just, as I was telling Constable Frederick, my allergies are just suddenly going crazy and it's all going to the back of my throat. Anyway, I was actually on like my final question, depending on where this conversation goes now. But is there anything else that you want people to know about yourself, about police officers in general, about anything? Like, is there any other message that you'd like to impart to the community?
Nothing about myself. Just that officers are out patrolling the areas 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we're approachable. And if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask. If you feel that you don't want to ask it in person, you can always email whatever division it is that you reside in. Or you can wait for your neighborhood officer, sleep on the question, and when you see them, the next time, ask them. I'm yet to feel like that people are, apprehensive to approach. There's many ways to ask the question, so just go ahead, whether it's by email or in person, or come and say hi. We always have several events within our neighborhoods, and now that the neighborhood program has expanded, it's we're easily accessible. We're more easily accessible, I find. So you can watch from a distance for a while, and then come and speak to us if you like. And
I know you wanted to give a shout out to some people before we ended things, so I'll let you do that now. Who did you want to give a shout out to?
Well, so basically, in like your policing life, it takes like as they say, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to get a police officer, in my opinion, to get a police officer, through their career. So without the help of these people, I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at. So obviously my son, my husband, my mom, Mr. P, Miss Shaw, and Jackie Trimble and Mike Williams. That's all I wanted to say.
You know what? If that was an Oscar speech, the music wouldn't have even come up yet. So that was very good, very succinct. Good for you. I have one more question. I know I said that was the last one, but I am curious because you have clearly had such an impact on so many people's lives throughout your career, including especially probably in your current role, and you'll continue to have that impact. I'm curious as to whether or what impact this job has had on your life.
It has had an impact. When things are, maybe negative, I try to look to do something positive to counter those feelings, if that makes any sense. So I find in this role, it's very easy to do a lot of self-fulfillment, and by helping people in the community was definitely how I think I'm able to go to work every day, have a smile on my face, be engaged. It's just, I like interacting. So that's how how I try to keep it positive,
Mhm.
because we've all been impacted, right? In both a negative and a positive way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
I love that. I love that. I know that I know that like you're being quite reserved with what you're saying right now, but the way that I've seen your face light up during certain parts of this interview, whether it is just talking about the kids in the schools or the basketball tournament or convincing your colleague, volunteering your colleague to show up in this TikTok video with even if maybe he wasn't informed that it was going to be on a TikTok video, that to be in his elf costume. I can tell that it like this job really holds a special place in your heart. And I'm sure that that comes across every day to the people that you're working with. And that's probably why you've been so successful as an officer in this role. So thank you so much, Officer Amanda. Maybe that's how I should be referring to you, not Constable Frederick. Officer Amanda, thank you so much for your time and for just sharing some of your experiences with us.
anytime.
Okay, great. So anytime, we'll do it again tomorrow. Maybe the next day. Yeah.
I'll practice speaking in front of a mirror for you.
Yeah.